Welcome to our channel, Beyond Midnight. Tonight's documentary is about the knight who guards his own grave. The air hangs heavy with a damp, oppressive silence as I cross the threshold of the forgotten sanctuary, an ancient, crumbling mausoleum whispered about in hushed tones and hushed fears. Moonlight, thin and spectral, filters through fractured stained glass, casting fractured mosaics of twisted color upon the cold stone floor. The arching vaults above seem to press downward, weighty with the memories of vanished centuries, and I feel an inexplicable weight on my chest, as if the shadows themselves are leaning in, listening. My footsteps echo faintly, swallowed by the thick silence, but beneath that, I swear I hear something else, an almost imperceptible whisper that threads through the darkness like a skein of black silk. It's a voice, or maybe hundreds of voices, murmuring in a language long dead, and yet hauntingly alive within these walls. The scent of decay and mold seizes my nostrils as I move deeper, and I notice the walls are lined with strange symbols, crude yet unnervingly purposeful, their lines curling into shapes that seem to shift subtly when I blink away the shadows. Whispered legends speak curses, inscribed to ward off the soul of a knight whose devotion became obsession, who guards his own grave in death as he did in life. I see it now, a tall, iron-bound tomb, cloaked in cobwebs and shadow, crowned with a battered coat of armor. The helmet rests askew, as if thrown aside in haste, yet I sense it is a trap woven of something darker than rust. Each ridge and inscription on the stone radiates the kind of malevolent energy that prickles my skin. And suddenly the whispers crescendo, mournful, desperate, accusing. And yet they seem to emanate from the very walls, from beneath the uneven floor, as if the grave itself breathes and watches. A shivering cold ripples through me as I step nearer, my eyes caught by a faint flickering. I initially think it's a flicker of candlelight, but then realize it's a slow, unnatural glow beneath the stones. Approaching closer, I notice the soil around the tomb is disturbed, as if someone or something has tried to open the earth to reach into what's supposed to remain buried. A bitter taste rises in my throat, and I want to turn away. Yet my feet are rooted, disbelieving, enthralled. Suddenly, shadows leap and dance along the crumbling walls, twisting like serpents with hollow, eyeless faces, flickering in and out of view. The whispers swell to a cacophony, childlike screams, the clang of unseen chains, the snarling echo of long-forgotten beasts. The symbols on the wall seem to pulse, blood red under the moon's pallid gaze, as if the very stones are alive with malice. My heartbeat pounds in my ears, deafening, as I realize this is no ordinary tomb. It is a shrine of sorrow, of cursed devotion, a place where the past refuses to die cleanly. From beneath the tomb's shadowed platform, I sense it, a presence dense and heavy like a storm before the dawn, waiting, watching. I can feel its gaze, steel, unwavering, and I shudder. Some story from long ago whispers into me that this is no ordinary guardian. It is a knight, bound by oath and darkness, who refuses to relinquish his charge, no matter how futile or cursed it might be. He is the one who guards his own grave so fiercely that no spirit or mortal can break through, except perhaps by looking into the abyss and letting it stare back. The air thickens, suffocating me with memories of a man who once fought for glory, now frozen in eternal vigil. I reach out, trembling, with trembling fingers that seem sticky with the dust of centuries, and clutch a fragment of debris from the broken tomb. I feel a sudden chill, a finger of icy dread tracing down my spine, apparent almost in a heartbeat, as if the guardian's wrath is awakening. Shadows swirl in a whirl of whispers, closer now, as if seeking my soul, and I hear the faint, unmistakable sound of a metal chain scraping against stone. My vision flickers. I see him, clad in tarnished armor, eyes hollow, yet burning with a fiery devotion, standing upright amid decay, forever bound to his own final grave. His silent vigil is an eternity of patience, warding off the unseen, the unknown, the cursed. But I realize now that his curse is his own pride. It is this very stubbornness that turned him into a myth, a warning, an eternal sentinel of darkness. I flee, heart pounding, as the whispers pursue me, dissolving into a hiss that echoes from the very corners of the tomb. Outside, the night remains cold and indifferent, but I carry the weight of what I have seen, an almost tangible shard of ancient obsession. And I know that somewhere within that mausoleum, beneath the dirt and dust and shadows, the cold, relentless gaze of the night still waits, guarding his own grave, guarding himself against forgetfulness of death, refusing to be disturbed or released, a silent sentinel in a land where time and reason have long since fallen to ruin. As dawn edged into the sky, its pale light seeped through the narrow fissures of the mausoleum's stonework, casting faint spectral glints across the hollow silence within. Beneath the imperfect veneer of decay, the air hung heavy with the scent of mold and history, thick and palpable, infused with centuries of silence, only occasionally broken by the distant, muffled whisper of wind slipping through cracks in the edifice. Somewhere deep within, the remains of that ancient sentinel, whether flesh or legend, remained undisturbed, shrouded in shadows that threatened to swallow the remnants of the past whole. The darkness had come part of his existence, his eternal hand on the hilt of a sword he would never sheath, eternally poised between the weight of duty and the abyss of oblivion. Time had carved its slow, relentless erosion into the stone, and the memory of those who had once dared to claim this site. Roads had crumbled, civilizations fallen, yet the presence of that night persisted, immutably still, vigilante in a world that had long since moved on without him. The legend of his unwavering gaze, glimpsed only fleetingly in myths whispered by torchlit villagers, clung stubbornly to the shadowed corridors of history. They said he was cursed, bound to an unending watch, a warden of secrets better left buried, his story tangled with the layered dust of centuries, a tapestry frayed by neglect and time's indifferent flow. In those early hours, a faint breeze stirred, rustling loose fragments of crumbling mortar and casting fleeting shadows that danced like specters across the cold stones. With each movement of the wind, the mausoleum seemed to whisper fragments of memory, voices from a bygone era, some lost to time, some daring to linger, perhaps waiting for the right moment to be resurrected. A faint metallic clink echoed, almost a heartbeat in the all-encompassing silence, as if the night's long-forgotten armor, half buried beneath layers of dust, had stirred. The notion of such an eternal guardian, frozen in perpetual vigilance, became something more than myth. It morphed into an allegory for human persistence and the unyielding grip of history upon the present. Long ago, perhaps, the knight had been a man, a protector born of glory and sacrifice, burdened with a promise that transcended death. Or maybe he was more. An embodiment of obsession itself, an archetype woven into the very fabric of this forsaken sanctuary. His silent vigil was a testament to the durability of memory, but also a monument to the futility of resistance against the relentless march of time. Certain stones, once cast in something approaching hope, now settled into slow decay, their stories tangled with the shadows, resistant to the light of understanding. In the stillness, one could imagine the quiet hum of the earth above him, a lullaby of weight and silence. Beneath that unyielding crust, the knight's gaze remained fixed, distant, unblinking, an eternal witness to the cycles of fading empires and rising legend. Was he waiting for something? Some sign, some invocation that would stir him from his centuries-long slumber? Or was he simply there, a monument to a world long erased, a testament to a time when faith and steel could carve meaning from chaos? No one knew. The stories refused to clarify, swirling in shadows of ambiguity that only deepened his mystery. As the sun climbed higher, its light refused to penetrate the deepest corners of the mausoleum, leaving the knight's domain cloaked once more in a cold, impenetrable gloom. Inside, the air grew thick with the weight of unseen burdens, remnants of a vow, a curse, a myth that refused to dissipate into the light. Somewhere beneath the surface of this ancient tomb, the essence of that night continued to endure, a silent ode to the enduring human need to believe in guardians, in eternal sentinels guarding what we cherish, and ultimately in the stories we leave behind, even if they are nothing more than whispers in the dark. As centuries ebbed and flowed like the tide upon a forgotten shore, the legend of the night persisted, woven into the fabric of local folklore and carried forward by whispers passed through crackling fires and trembling lips. The myth became a touchstone in an ever-changing world, a symbol of steadfastness amid chaos, an eternal sentinel standing unmoved through the storms of history. Farmers paused before the ancient stone, elders recounted tales in late-night gatherings, and children dared to imagine the silhouette of armor emerging from the shadows, guarding secrets that time itself refused to relinquish. Scholars, driven by a thirst for knowledge that was relentless as the night's supposed vigil, examined the site with cautious reverence, striving to peel back layers of myth that had hardened around the relic. They uncovered relics, fragmented bones, rusted weapons, and carvings beneath the dust of ages. Each artifact offered a glimpse into a distant epoch, yet none could definitively tether the legend to a single concrete identity. Was he a noble protector, fallen in battle, or merely a victim of circumstance, sacrificed to preserve a buried secret? Perhaps he was merely a man, forever immortalized in stories, whose true history was swallowed by the abyss of time. This ambiguity fed the allure, an almost sacred ambiguity, allowing the myth to evolve beyond its origins, to serve as a mirror for human longing for permanence amid transience. The tomb itself, an architectural puzzle carved from weathered stone, seemed to pulse with silent whispers of the past, archaeologists explored beneath layers of earth and rubble, revealing cryptic symbols that spoke of ancient rites, of guardians bound by blood and oath, as if the very stones held memories too profound to surrender completely. Time in these moments of excavation and study seemed to stand still, caught between the living curiosity of the present and the spectral echoes of the ancient vow. Meanwhile, artists and writers found inspiration in this endless dance of legend. Paintings depicted a shadowy figure, standing guard in the eternal dark, wielding a sword forged in the fires of belief. Alms wove intricate tapestries of heroism and sorrow, hinting that perhaps the knight's true immortality was not in flesh or bone, but in the stories that the world refused to forget. Some interpretations suggested that the figure represented humanity's unyielding hope, a sentinel against chaos, a symbol that even in the face of inevitable decay, the stories we cherish refuse to fade into oblivion. Throughout history, pilgrimages were undertaken to see the site, driven by a collective yearning for connection to something greater than oneself, to the intangible assurance that vigil and virtue transcend death. Pilgrims left tokens, small tokens of faith, worn coins, carved stones, even simple flowers, believing that their offerings could sustain the night's silent watch, or perhaps awaken him from his ageless slumber. Those objects became part of a living tradition, woven into the ongoing narrative that kept the legend alive. In the shadows of the ongoing exploration, debates raged among historians and mythographers. Someone posited that the tale originated as a means to enforce moral codes for courage, loyalty, and sacrifice, embodying ideals that sustained fragile communities under threat of invasion or disaster. Others argued that it was nothing more than a well-crafted myth, a projection of human desire to see order in the chaos, to craft stories that ennoble the mundane. Yet somehow, beneath all the scholarly speculation, a stubborn core persisted. The feeling that this night was more than stone and legend, a fragment of human hope etched into the unyielding bedrock of time. As the centuries slipped past, new technologies emerged: ground-penetrating radar, carbon dating, and digital mapping. Methods that seemed to question the very foundations of those age-old stories. Yet amid these advances, the myth remained resilient. It refused to be fully unraveled, perhaps because it was never meant to be. Instead, it blossomed anew in each retelling, adapting to the moods of each generation, a mirror held up to the eternal human need for guardianship, for symbols of protection amid the uncertainty that fears the silence of the eventual end. That silent figure, standing eternally guard, becomes a silent testament not merely to heroism, but to the human capacity to enshrine the intangible. Trust, hope, the relentless pursuit of something enduring through the fleeting shadows of life. And so this spectral sentinel, this guardian carved into the collective consciousness, persisted for centuries of upheaval and transformation. It haunted not only the stone and myth of ancient temples, but the dreams of those who sought shelter from chaos and despair. Every carved glance, every stoic stance, became a vessel for countless hopes brimming beneath the surface of human resilience. Tales spun around flickering hearth fires painted it as more than mere stone. It was the embodiment of unwavering faith in something greater than oneself. silent witness to victories, sacrifices, and the unspoken bonds that knit communities together across millennia. In times of plague and war, the figure's silent vigil offered a paradoxical comfort, a reminder that even in the face of annihilation, some semblance of order, of permanence, could be maintained. It became an anchor amid the storm, a symbol that even as civilizations rose and fell, some ideals, like protection and vigilance, transcended their earthly embodiments. As civilizations expanded and contracted, the guardian evolved, cloaked in new symbolism, translated into myriad languages and sculpted in diverse materials. It ranged from the imposing stone statues atop city walls to delicate frescoes whispering stories of divine watchfulness. Historians and cultural anthropologists have marveled at how the figure's meaning shifted depending on who looked upon it. For rulers, it was a divine endorsement, a sign of divine favor and authority. For common folk, it was a protector, a tangible presence shielding quaint villages from unseen threats. In times of enlightenment, paintings and stories threaded new layers onto this silent sentinel, imbuing it with human doubts, fears, and even humorous imperfections. Like a guardian who, despite its stoic posture, perhaps occasionally blinked in the flickering candlelight. Yet beneath all these adaptations, the core remained remarkably stable. That instinctual human desire for a steadfast protector, standing guard amid chaos, to serve as an everlasting reminder that even when everything else crumbles, certain virtues endure. These symbols became part of something larger: national identities, religious doctrines, collective memories, woven into the fabric of history itself. They remind us that guardians are more than figures of stone. They are manifestations of hope, the embodiment of our collective aspiration to find safety in the chaos, to carve out sanctuaries in the shifting sands of time. Even in their silence, these guardians beckon a dialogue between past and present, between fear and courage. They invite us to reflect on our own positions within the ongoing story, the ways in which we too attempt to become protectors, to uphold what we cherish, whether through words, actions, or quiet steadfastness. In their unwavering vigilance, we see a mirror to our own perpetual striving, an unspoken pact that no matter how turbulent the world becomes, some semblance of protection, and with it hope, will endure. As dawn finally broke over the landscape, a faint, balletic shimmer of light cast long, tentative shadows across the terrain, whispering of both renewal and the enduring weight of history. The figures who had once stood sentinel, their silhouettes etched against the morning haze, now moved with a quiet purpose, each step a testament to resilience rooted in generations of collective memory. In their eyes flickered the same fire that had ignited centuries ago, a quiet defiance against the encroaching tide of uncertainty, a pledge renewed with every whispered word and steady gaze. They carried with them not just tools or weapons, but the weight of tales spun through time, stories of sacrifice and hope that wove themselves into the very fabric of their identity. Within the wind's gentle gust, the voices of the past echoed softly, carried through the rustling leaves and fleeting shadows. Those voices spoke of moments when resolve was tested, of lines drawn in the dirt, and spirits forged in adversity. Every gesture now bore the unspoken promise to shield what was sacred, to nurture what survived against all odds. It was a mutual understanding rooted in shared history, a silent acknowledgement that protection is neither simple nor fleeting. Rather, it is a continuous act, a dialogue sustained through deliberate acts and unwavering commitments. And as the day stretched onward, history persisted, not as a distant echo, but as a living, breathing force that thrived in every cautious glance, every subtle act of defiance, every whispered prayer for endurance. Meanwhile, beyond the horizon, distant structures, ruined or restored, served as monuments to both what had been lost and what could yet be reassembled. These remnants, fragile yet resilient, embodied the complex dance between memory and possibility, a testament to the human capacity to rebuild from ashes, even when the future seems uncertain. Each scar on the land bore witness to stories of resistance, unsaid battles fought in silence, moments when courage overcame despair. Here, amid the scars and blooms, protection was redefined, not just a shield against external threats, but a process of forging bonds, of nurturing community, and fostering hope amid chaos. The landscape itself, whether marked by destruction or renewal, became a living testament to the resilient threads that connect generations, an unbreakable tapestry woven from shared struggles and aspirations. In this ever-expanding mosaic, the acts of protection took myriad forms, some overt, others subtle, yet all infused with purpose. A child's tentative grasp on a parent's hand, a careful moment of listening to a neighbor's story, a silent vigil kept under starlit skies. These gestures, seemingly minor, formed the backbone of a larger narrative, one where hope persists in the quiet acts of kindness and steadfastness. Every act, no matter how small, reaffirmed a truth that persisted through centuries, that amid chaos, community, love, and memory remain the most enduring forces. They remind us that protection is less about barriers and more about the resilience of bonds woven through shared histories, dreams, and commitments to a future worth fighting for. Even as the world shifts beneath shifting truths, the stories of those who stood resilient remain etched into the land and hearts alike. Their legacy whispers in the wind, reiterating a timeless affirmation that hope, once kindled, refuses to be extinguished by uncertainty. It survives not because it is invulnerable, but precisely because it persists amid vulnerability, growing stronger in the cracks and crevices of chaos, because it's nourished by the very struggles it seeks to transcend. In this, amid the endless tide of change and challenge, protection becomes a conscious act, a shared endeavor to uphold what is sacred, not just for oneself, but for all who come after, a perpetual promise woven into the unfolding story of human endurance. And so, as civilizations rose and fell, the act of safeguarding became a silent yet indelibly woven thread through the fabric of history, a testament to the resilience of collective memory and the indomitable spirit of survival. In the ancient cities carved from stone, where the echoes of ancestral voices still flickered like faint embers, defenders of culture and tradition forged sacred bonds, shaping protective barriers not only of brick and mortar, but of ideas and beliefs. These were the unwritten codes, passed down through generations, that etched themselves into the collective identity, standing guard against the erosion of meaning in the face of relentless change. In the midst of tempest and tranquility alike, communities learned to listen for whispers of threat or opportunities, adapting their defenses with ingenuity and resolve. The construction of fortresses, the crafting of alliances, the silent vigil of guardians on night watch. They were all expressions of an understanding that the intangible often held the greatest weight. Preserving language, stories, and rituals became acts of resistance, fueling the collective will to resist obliteration by time or conquest. Empires, sprawling and insatiable, sought to inscribe their dominion not just through conquest, but through the imprint of their culture. Monuments cast in stone, records etched into scrolls, laws codified into enduring edicts. Yet these acts of protection often revealed paradoxes. In their pursuit of permanence, they risked ossification, their vitality drained in the effort to immortalize fleeting moments. Still, some legacies endured because they adapted, morphing into myths, legends, or symbol systems that resisted decay, feeding future generations with lessons of resilience. The very act of remembrance became an unyielding bulwark. Ceremonies, memorials, rites, these were the tools to keep alive the memory of trauma and triumph alike, ensuring that the lessons learned from past vulnerability were woven into the collective consciousness. In doing so, civilizations created repositories of strength that transcended individual existence, anchoring communities against the abyss of forgetfulness and despair. Throughout this turbulent continuum, the concept of protection extended beyond mere defense. It encompassed nurturing growth, fostering innovation, and cultivating empathy. Societies recognized that safeguarding meant opening spaces where new ideas could take root amidst adversity, where dialogue replaced dogma, and where the fragile intertwining of trust and understanding fortified social bonds. This dynamic equilibrium between openness and defense became the fertile soil in which progress could flourish amid chaos. And as centuries unfolded, it became ever clearer that no fortress was invulnerable, no shield impenetrable. Yet it was precisely the acknowledgement of vulnerability that infused these acts of protection with their profound strength. The recognition that imperfection and uncertainty are inherent to existence propelled humans to craft adaptive strategies, embracing change as a constant partner rather than an enemy. In doing so, they ensured that the pursuit of safeguarding was never static, but a fluid, collective dance, perpetually renewed by the hope of continuity amid transformation. Every effort, every act of care became a testament to the understanding that resilience resides not in the absence of fragility, but in the courage to face it squarely, turning potential weakness into a wellspring of enduring vitality. As communities rallied around this philosophy, a tapestry of traditions and innovations wove itself into the fabric of daily life, blending the old with the new in an unceasing tempo. Pioneering minds drew from ancestral wisdom, finding ways to enhance contemporary practices through age-old principles, creating a dynamic dialogue across generations. This synergy cultivated a culture where adaptation was not seen as betrayal, but as an expression of respect for life's inherent flux. In neighborhoods where resilience was embedded into their very architecture, the walls of shelters and communal spaces bore silent witness to countless acts of ingenuity, improvised reinforcements, creative repurposing of materials, and shared labor that transformed adversity into opportunity. These efforts fostered a sense of collective ownership, imbuing every stone laid and every support erected with a deeper meaning. The act of safeguarding evolved into an ongoing ritual, an unconsciously performed ballet of mutual commitment and understanding that connected people across divides of age, class, and experience. Amidst this communal effort, storytelling flourished as a vital thread, stitching together individual histories into a larger narrative of perseverance and hope. Elders recounted stories of past hardships overcome, inspiring younger generations to see obstacles not as insurmountable barriers, but as chapters in a continuous saga of resilience. These narratives became living archives, guiding principles that informed everyday decision-making, fostering a shared identity rooted in the knowledge that strength was often born from vulnerability. Innovators and artisans worked in tandem with scientists and scholars, blurring the lines between tradition and modernity. They created sustainable solutions rooted in local ecosystems, designing resilient crops suited to shifting climate patterns, developing building techniques that responded to seismic activity, and cultivating communal gardens that fostered food security and social cohesion. This collaborative ethos exemplified the understanding that safeguarding depended on a confluence of diverse perspectives, working in harmony, each contributing a piece to the puzzle of sustained well-being. As policies evolved and institutions adapted to these grassroots initiatives, a new paradigm emerged, one that emphasized decentralization, empowerment, and the fluid exchange of knowledge. Decision-making processes became more participatory, echoing the philosophy that resilience was a collective enterprise, rather than the sole prerogative of experts. In this landscape, governments and organizations served as facilitators rather than rulers, nurturing the seedbeds of local innovation and fostering environments where resilience could flourish organically. In this ongoing dance of adaptation, technology played both a supporting and an enabling role. Early warning systems, population health monitoring, and resource management tools became extensions of human instinct, a means to amplify our collective capacity to respond swiftly and effectively. Yet, these tools were always integrated with the understanding that authentic resilience was rooted in human connections, community bonds, and cultural continuity. Technology was a bridge, not a crutch, reinforcing the innate strength derived from shared empathy and understanding. Through these intertwined efforts, the collective consciousness shifted towards a recognition that safeguarding was neither a finite achievement nor a static state, but a perpetual act, a continuous unfolding that thrived on diversity, empathy, and shared responsibility. It became a living testament that resilience was fundamentally a mosaic of stories, skills, and spirits woven into the tapestry of life itself, an eternal dance that celebrated the imperfect beauty of human existence and the unyielding hope that together, transformation could be not only endured, but embraced as a path toward a richer, more enduring future. As the years unfurled, this renewed understanding of preservation and resilience carved deeper into societal fabric, influencing not just policies, but the very core of community life. Grassroots movements blossomed like wildflowers in forgotten corners, each one emphasizing local knowledge and indigenous practices that had long been undervalued or dismissed by dominant paradigms. These efforts became living chronicles, stories passed orally from generation to generation, echoes of ancestral wisdom harmonizing with modern innovations. Educational institutions, once rigid in their curricula, began to evolve into hubs of experiential learning. The preservation of tradition intertwined with scientific inquiry and creative expression. Young minds, eager to bridge the gap between past and future, learned to see themselves as custodians of a delicate, vibrant ecosystem of culture, environment, and relationships. It was a slow revolution, fueled less by directives and more by a collective awakening. The realization that safeguarding the human and natural worlds was a symbiotic dance, one that demanded humility, patience, and a willingness to listen. Within this paradigm, stories of struggle and triumph became embedded in the collective memory. From the sparse, wind-beaten villages clinging to centuries-old customs, to sprawling urban centers experimenting with sustainable living, each narrative contributed a piece to the mosaic of resilience. The importance of community, once overshadowed by individual ambition, re-emerged as the heartbeat of collective endurance. People learned that vulnerability was not a weakness, but an act of courage, a recognition of shared fragility that fostered deeper empathy and renewed commitment. In this ongoing journey, technology did not stand apart, but integrated as a tool, an extension of human ingenuity wielded to amplify voices that had long been silenced, and to amplify care where neglect had once reigned. Digital repositories of cultural artifacts, virtual forums for dialogue, and innovative renewable energy solutions all aligned with a common purpose: to nurture the interconnected web of life and story that sustains us all. This tapestry grew more intricate with each passing decade, threads intertwining across continents, across oceans, across memories. It was a living, breathing mosaic, constantly reweaving itself in response to new challenges and insights. The resilience encoded in this fabric was not static, but fluid, a dynamic dance of adaptation and intention, an everlasting affirmation that the human capacity for renewal was as boundless as the stars above and as deep as the roots beneath. The collective consciousness, reborn through the recognition of our own imperfections and the beauty therein, embraced the infinite potential of enduring hope. This hope is rooted not in ignorance of hardship, but in the unwavering conviction that our shared stories, skills, and spirits could shape a future resilient enough to hold both joy and sorrow alike. As communities gathered around crackling fires and under the vast, starlit sky, they passed down stories with reverence, weaving the threads of their collective identity ever tighter. In every whispered legend and sung ballad, the echoes of ancestors whose trials had forged the very fabric of their courage resonated with renewed vitality. These oral traditions, more than mere remnants of memory, became living vessels of resilience, nourishing the spirit amid turbulent times. Through centuries of upheaval and transformation, the fabric of society itself was stitched with motifs of innovation, inspired by necessity. When crops failed or armies advanced, ingenuity blossomed anew. Willows bent into baskets, ink traced on parchment with cunning symbols, and ideas sparked in communal chambers. where elders and youth exchanged insights. Each challenge was met not with surrender, but with an alchemy of hope and relentless pursuit of survival, transforming adversity into opportunities for growth and reinvention. Trade routes long buried beneath dunes and ocean floors once pulsed with the heartbeat of commerce, connecting disparate peoples in a tapestry of cultural exchange. From the vibrant markets of Byzantium to the bustling ports of the South China Sea, every piece of silk, spice, or coin carried stories of resilience and adaptation. Merchants, brave and resourceful, sought not merely profit, but understanding, forging bonds that transcended language and faith, constructing bridges of trust that could withstand the tumult of empire and revolution alike. In times of plague, famine, or war, communities turned inward, finding strength in shared rituals and collective memory. Sacred spaces offered sanctuary, shrines, temples, groves, each whispering in silent solidarity that hope persisted beyond the immediate shadow of despair. Artisans carved resilience into statues and ceiling friezes. Poets spun optimism into verses that defied despair, while scientists and scholars dared to question, to explore, even as chaos roared outside their walls. Amid these persistent cycles of destruction and renewal, the very notions of identity and purpose evolved. No longer solely anchored by tradition, they embraced change as a vital element of survival. Societies learned to listen to the subtle shifts in the winds, the changing migration patterns of birds, the rising language of new generations. Progress was seen not as a linear journey, but as a branching tree, each limb representing a different choice, a new discovery, or a reimagined purpose. The human story became an intricate mosaic, each fragment adding depth and color to a larger, ever-expanding tableau. This resilience, woven into the collective fabric of humanity, neither diminished nor became complacent. Instead, it grew like a living organism, adaptable, responsive, and vibrant. It thrived on memory and innovation alike, drawing strength from the understanding that every setback was but a shadow cast temporarily by the light of human ingenuity. From the ashes of loss, communities often rose phoenix-like, their spirits unextinguished, their wills sharpened by the very fires that sought to consume them. And as the centuries unfurled, the intertwining stories of countless peoples continued to stretch toward the horizon, a testament to the unyielding belief that in the interconnectedness of all endeavors, in the shared trial and triumph, lay the formula for enduring hope. This hope, not naive or blind, was rooted in the acknowledgement that imperfection and hardship are integral to growth, that every scar tells a story of survival, and that even in the darkest night, a dawn awaits, dawning brighter with each act of resilience, each gesture of renewal, each story handed down through time. In the quiet moments between chaos and calm, humanity spun its narratives and tapestries woven with threads of daring innovation and quiet persistence. From the earliest hearth fires, where ancestors circled in shadows and whispered tales of survival into the night, to the bustling streets of burgeoning cities, echoing with the clang and clang of industry, the pulse of progress hammered on, whether chased by the specter of famine or uplifted by a spark of curiosity. Each generation built upon the remnants of those that came before, sometimes stumbling, sometimes soaring, each misstep a lesson etched in collective memory, and each triumph a beacon shining through the fog of uncertainty. The currents of conquest and exchange flowed like an intricate bloodstream, carrying ideas, pleasures, fears, and innovations between distant lands. Empires rose and fell, not just through violence and supremacy, but also through diplomacy, trade, and the silent power of cultural interchange. The Silk Road, that ancient artery of commerce and ideas, carried spices and silk, but also philosophies and stories, planting seeds that would bloom centuries later in distant regions. The Renaissance, a rebirth fueled by rediscovery, illuminated the darkened corners of the medieval world and lit a fire that ignited science, art, and questioning that persists even now. These moments underscore the inexhaustible impulse to understand, to create, to connect, to forge meaning where chaos once reigned. Yet history teaches that progress is rarely linear and often fraught with contradiction. The same strides that advance technology sometimes deepen divides. The same ideals of liberty and justice that inspired revolutions often remained elusive for many. The echoes of oppression, resistance, and reform reverberate through the corridors of time, revealing resilience not just in the acts of the few, but in the collective willingness to challenge the status quo. Movements sparked by whispers of dissent grew into roars capable of reshaping nations, reminding us that hope can be a revolutionary act, emboldened not by ignorance, but by an unwavering belief in the possibility of change. Throughout it all, the arts have served as both mirror and molder of human experience, turning pain into poetry and joy into symphony. From the carved stones of ancient temples to the digital canvases of today, artistic expression chronicles our innermost fears, ambitions, and transcendence. They are the silent witnesses to history's tumult, offering comfort and challenge in equal measure. Literature, music, visual art, these are anchors of memory and beacons of aspiration, reminding us that even amid suffering, beauty persists, and in expression we find our echo across epochs. In the quiet rebirths and resacralizations of societies, in the moments when individuals refuse to surrender their hope, despite overwhelming odds, the deep truth persists. Human resilience is woven tightly into the very fabric of existence. Every discovery that broadens our understanding, every act of kindness that restores faith, every story of perseverance adds another thread to the grand tapestry of collective history. These stories, often tucked into the margins, seldom celebrated, serve as quiet testaments to the tenacity that sustains us, whispering time and again that hope is not a passive thing, but an active, dynamic force that transforms despair into dawn, despair into dawn again. As the centuries unfurled, this intricate fabric of hope and resilience wove ever more complex patterns, each thread representing a moment of human ingenuity, courage, and compassion. From the bustling marketplaces of ancient civilizations to the silent, snowy peaks where explorers pushed the limits of endurance, our ancestors pressed forward, driven by a persistent curiosity about the world and a relentless desire to shape their destiny. They built monuments that reach skyward like silent witnesses to their dreams, carved stories into stone that would outlast empires, and sang songs that traversed generations, carrying memories and lessons through the turbulence of time. In the midst of upheaval, wars that shattered nations, and pandemics that decimated populations, small acts of rebellion and resilience quietly redefined the course of history. A village refused to surrender its knowledge during a time of invasion. A young inventor tinkered tirelessly in a humble workshop, imagining machines that would someday connect distant peoples. These moments often remained hidden behind larger narratives, yet they formed the backbone of progress, an enduring reminder that human spirit often finds ways to endure and flourish even in the harshest environments. Across the oceans and across borders, communities continually reconstructed themselves from the ashes of conflict, forging identities that synthesized both tradition and innovation. Art, music, and storytelling became vehicles not just of survival, but of celebration, reminding everyone that culture is both a refuge and a revolution. When dynasties fell and empires faded, it was often the oral histories and local legends, passed down through hushed voices by firesides, that kept the flames of memory alive, preparing subsequent generations to learn from the mistakes of the past and to dream anew. The march of progress carried scientists and thinkers along unpredictable paths. Some discoveries born of serendipity, others sprung from painstaking experimentation and relentless questioning. The breakthroughs that transform societies, be it in health, technology, or understanding of the cosmos, were rarely the work of solitary geniuses, but the result of networks of inquiry, collaboration, and shared purpose. In laboratories and libraries, individuals questioned, challenged, and expanded the boundaries of what was deemed possible, fueled by an inherent belief that knowledge is a collective quest, never fully complete, but perpetually evolving. Throughout history, marginalized voices slowly gained strength, vocalizing truths that had long been silenced. Their stories, once obscured or dismissed, began to surface, revealing the vast, often overlooked, corners of human experience. These voices, rising against oppression and ignorance, ignited movements that reshaped societies, altered laws, and redefined notions of justice and equality. What began as whispers in underground alleys or clandestine meetings grew into roars heard across continents, echoing through the corridors of power and inspiring action at every level. The human journey has also been a continual dance of adaptation, responding to the relentless rhythms of environmental change and societal upheaval. Communities learn to thrive in deserts and rebuild after calamities, developing technologies and philosophies that allowed them to not merely survive, but to flourish. These adaptations were not solely mechanical. They were rooted in resilience of spirit, in stories passed down and lessons learned, often emphasizing that the key to enduring hardship lies in unity and a shared vision of a better future. Modern times have been no different, blighted by crises, yet also illuminated by breakthroughs. As digital networks connect individuals across the globe, the old stories of isolation give way to new narratives of interconnectedness and empathy. In the flicker of screens and the quiet moments of reflection they foster, a new chorus of hope rises, one that recognizes that the collective is larger and more potent than the sum of its parts. This new chapter is written not just in grand gestures or epical discoveries, but in everyday acts of kindness, the small choices that ripple outward, shaping the future with gentle strength. The continuity of past struggles and triumphs reminds us that each generation inherits not just history, but a responsibility. A baton handed down with the silent understanding that the story is ongoing, and that hope always is a verb, an active pursuit that molds the horizon ahead. As the centuries unfurled, this truth wove itself into the fabric of daily life. An unspoken contract forged in the quiet patience of those who refuse to surrender to despair. From the vibrant markets bustling with merchants shouting their wares, to artisans painstakingly shaping fragile glass into intricate masterpieces, the subtle power of perseverance coursed beneath the surface. In libraries dim with candlelight, scholars clung to the flickering flame of curiosity, their notebooks filled with scribbles that hinted at future revelations, fueling the eternal quest for understanding. Across vast landscapes, farmers planting seeds in the dawn's first light carried hope embedded in every furrow, believing that the earth, coaxed with consistent care, would yield sustenance and renewal. Women and men of uncommon resilience worked tirelessly, teachers igniting minds, healers mending wounds, neighbors sharing bread in times of famine, all reinforcing the unbreakable thread of community. In these microcosms, history moved not in thunderous marches, but in whispers. Each act of compassion, a stone laid upon the foundation of progress. Time itself became a mosaic of these small gestures, an elderly storyteller recounting tales that bridged generations, a child offering a hand to a peer uncertain of their place, a poet capturing fleeting shadows of human experience in words that would echo through ages. Even amidst tumult and upheaval, the delicate workings of empathy and hope persisted, reminding us that resilience often manifests in endurance rather than conquest. It is in these understated moments, often unnoticed, where the true shape of human continuity is forged. The relentless tide of change shaped new societies and shattered old paradigms. Yet the core of human endeavor remained consistent, an unyielding pursuit of meaning and belonging. The stories of those who dared to dream against the odds, of individuals who refused to be silenced by fear or defeat, became the silent architects of history's ongoing conversation. Their quiet resistance, their unwavering belief in something better, even if hidden behind quotidian routines, created the fertile ground for revolutions not just of power, but of spirit. As the present gazes back and forward, embracing the tangled web of past choices and future aspirations, it is clear that the narrative is not fixed. It is a living thing, continually rewritten in acts both large and small, in moments of introspection and moments of gesture. The thread that binds all is hope. Not a passive sentiment, but an active force. A willingness to shape the unseen future with choices rooted in compassion, curiosity, and courage. This ongoing story, painted in countless shades of human effort and connection, reminds us that history is less a distant record and more a shared journey, an infinite conversation carried forward with every person who dares to believe in change. As the days unfold beneath the weight of their dreams and struggles, the narrative of resilience persists, intertwining the quiet acts of kindness with the grand gestures of revolution. It's in the subtle ripple of a smile exchanged between strangers navigating the chaos, in the determined hands that mend what was broken, and in the unspoken promises made beneath the silent witness of stars. Time, relentless yet forgiving, weaves these moments into a fabric that stretches across borders and generations, whispering tales of hope that refuse to be silenced by despair. In distant corners of the world, ancient traditions clash and converge with the relentless march of progress. Here, the old ways are preserved in the flickering flame of community stories, passing from one elder to the next like precious heirlooms, embedded with lessons of endurance and love. Young voices erupt in spirited debates, invigorated by the belief that the future is forged in the present, in every step taken towards understanding, acceptance, and innovation. Technology, for all its speed, serves as a bridge rather than a barrier, a conduit for voices once muffled by geography or history, inviting a collective awakening. Across landscapes scarred by conflict and hardship, fragments of hope blossom anew, often in the most unexpected forms. A young girl planting a garden amid rubble, a teacher risking everything to educate in secret, a community banding together to rebuild not just structures, but trust. These acts may seem small against the vastness of suffering, yet they are seeds, beginnings of stories that ripple outward, defying the static silence of despair. The human spirit's tenacity lies precisely in this, an unwavering refusal to accept the finality of despair, asserting instead that the narrative can always be rewritten again, with every choice rooted in understanding and empathy. History's grand tapestry is also woven with the threads of dissent, voices unapologetic in their assertion that change is not only possible but necessary. Protest banners unfurl like flags of renewal. Voices rise in chorus to challenge injustice, and sit-ins bloom as silent demands for recognition. These moments are echoes of ancient defiance, reminders that upheaval is often the soil from which new visions take root. Conversation becomes activism, and hope becomes a rallying cry, echoing across city streets and remote valleys alike. The interconnectedness of all these stories, of heartbreak and triumph, of loss and rebirth, serves as a reminder that our shared history is alive in every encounter, every decision, every act of kindness. It's a testament to the belief that the future isn't a distant destination, but a horizon continuously shaped. The choices made today, no matter how small or hesitant, bear weight in the collective ledger of human experience. They are the strokes on a canvas that humanity keeps painting, imperfect, yet inevitable in its beauty, driven forward by that relentless undercurrent of hope. And as the story unfolds, it invites us to imagine ourselves not as passive witnesses, but as active participants, co-authors in a story that is still being written, chapter after chapter, in the language of resilience, love, and unyielding faith in what could be next. The pages turn, revealing moments when shadows lengthened, times of upheaval that tested the very fabric of human spirit. Empires rose with the promise of unity and fell into ruin, their echoes carried by stories of conquest and calamity that ripple through generations. Yet amid the chaos, small acts of kindness, rebellion, and ingenuity persisted, like sparks that ignite anew even in the depths of darkness. These flickers of resistance, be they whispers in underground corridors or messages inscribed on battered walls, remind us that evolution is often born from the margins, from those unnoticed cities of the overlooked. Innovation sprouted in unlikely places. A lone mathematician, poring over scribbled notes in a secluded attic, glimpsed through time as a quiet hero who would, centuries later, revolutionize how we understand the universe. A seamstress sewing symbols of defiance into the seams of her garments, each stitch a silent protest, a testament to resilience. Their stories, woven into the tapestry of history, demonstrate that even when the world seems to stand still, the human drive to create, question, and transcend endures. It is embedded deep within the collective subconscious, shaping the tides of change, often unseen but no less profound. Sometimes, the very act of surviving becomes an act of rebellion, standing firm when others falter. Small communities, isolated or suppressed, cultivate traditions and knowledge that defy obliteration, preserving languages and songs that carry centuries of wisdom like sacred heirlooms. These cultural residues serve as blueprints for future generations, proof that identity and memory are reservoirs of power. In the shadows of colonization and war, resistance takes myriad forms: silent preservation, clandestine education, the clandestine passing of stories, each a testament to the unbreakable will to remain. Throughout history's tumult, alliances form and fracture like ice on turbulent waters. Empires intertwine through diplomacy, betrayal, and sometimes sheer luck, forging new worlds or dismantling old ones overnight. The revolutionary ideas that challenge established authority, whether philosophical, political, or spiritual, bubble beneath the surface and erupt at critical moments, reshaping the landscape of possibility. These ideas often come from unlikely sources: a philosopher in a crowded marketplace, a poet whose words ripple across generations, a scientist questioning the universe's boundaries, not from academia, but from a humble workshop. Their courage in voicing the unspoken truths influences the course of history, reminding us that transformation often begins with a single voice daring to be heard. In the face of catastrophe, individuals forge paths toward healing and renewal. The aftermath of war leaves scars that throb with memories, yet it also sparks extraordinary acts of reconstruction. Mothers tending to wounded children amidst ruins, teachers reviving neglected schools, artists capturing the pain and hope in strokes of vivid color. Such acts embody an unyielding belief in rebirth, proving that decay and destruction do not define the final chapter. They are rather the punctuation that, when navigated with grit and imagination, makes space for a new narrative to emerge. One forged from the debris, infused with the perseverance of those who refuse to let despair be a last word. The digital age introduces a new frontier, a realm where the threads of human connection stretch across continents in seconds, fueling both hope and chaos. It amplifies voices that once faded into silence, democratizing storytelling and knowledge. Yet it also magnifies fears, fuels division, and questions the very notion of truth. Navigating this sprawling landscape requires discernment, a conscious effort to foster empathy amid rapid exchange, and a recognition that digital footprints are the new ink penned into history's endless scroll. Perhaps in this evolution, humanity learns anew how to communicate, how to listen, and how to find common ground hidden beneath the cacophony of voices. Every era bears witness to the dance of power and vulnerability, of giants who tower and the quiet souls who shape the fabric of everyday life. Just as brilliant stars burn briefly in the night sky, so too do fleeting moments of grace and insight light up history's dark tapestry, reminding us that illumination often comes in small, unexpected flashes, whether through acts of defiance or moments of surrender, through the resilience of the spirit or the humility of acknowledgement. These elements are the brushstrokes that compose the ongoing masterpiece as the story persists, unfolding in real time. It whispers of endless possibilities, a future that hinges on the choices made today, woven into the same fabric of hope, struggle, and perseverance. Humanity's narrative is an ongoing dialogue, a symphony composed of countless voices, each adding their note, each building upon the last. It invites us to see ourselves not merely as inhabitants of history, but as its authors, capable of steering its course toward a horizon that reflects our collective dreams, brighter, kinder, and more illuminated by understanding than ever before. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the threads of human experience are woven with both resilience and innovation, shaping civilizations through a tapestry of struggle and triumph. Across continents and centuries, societies have risen and fallen, each leaving indelible marks on the grand mosaic of history. The ingenuity of early explorers, driven by curiosity and the desire for connection, pushed boundaries beyond known horizons, forging links between disparate cultures and sparking exchanges of ideas, art, and tradition. In the wake of these voyages, trade routes blossomed, transforming isolated communities into bustling hubs of commerce and cultural fusion. The Silk Road, for instance, was more than a trade corridor. It was a conduit for the flow of philosophies, religions, and innovations that would ripple across continents. Alongside merchants, spiritual leaders, and scholars, traversed these pathways, planting seeds of enlightenment that grew into enduring legacies. The spread of Buddhism through Asia, fusion of Islam in Africa and the Middle East, and the dissemination of Christianity across Europe all testify to a universal impulse for understanding and connection that transcends borders. Periods of upheaval, while often turbulent, catalyzed profound transformations. The Renaissance, ignited by rediscoveries of classical knowledge and a renewed passion for human potential, challenged the monolithic structures of medievalism and fostered scientific inquiry, artistic expression, and individual thought. Thinkers like Galileo and Copernicus reconfigured our understanding of the cosmos, defying dogma and inspiring generations to question authority. The printing press expanded the reach of ideas exponentially, ushering in an era where knowledge became accessible beyond the cloistered walls of scholarly elite. Yet amidst these remarkable advances, darker chapters unfolded. Wars fueled by ambition or imbalance, colonization asserting dominance over indigenous cultures, and systemic injustices that laid deep scars on societies. These episodes serve as stark reminders that progress is rarely linear, and that human capacity for innovation is matched by its capacity for destruction. The aftermath of conflict, however, often ignited pathways toward renewal, fostering dialogues around rights, equality, and justice. that continue to shape the fabric of modern civilization. In the realm of science and technology, the recent centuries have witnessed an extraordinary acceleration of change. The harnessing of electricity, the unraveling of the human genome, the advent of the digital age, all echo humanity's unyielding pursuit of mastery over uncertainty. These innovations have interconnected the globe with unprecedented immediacy, transforming daily life and redefining community and identity. Yet they also pose complex ethical dilemmas, questions of privacy, AI autonomy, and environmental sustainability, reminding us that each breakthrough carries responsibilities alongside possibilities. Throughout this vast, interwoven history, the central theme persists: the power of collective agency. Every discovery, every conflict, every revolution stems from individuals and groups asserting their voices, challenging the status quo, and shaping a future that often emerged from the shadows of the past. Cultural expressions, be it poetry, music, or visual art, serve as mirrors and windows, reflecting universal human emotions while inviting others into shared experiences. The stories of hope, loss, defiance, and love are etched into the fabric of history, reminding us that meaning is born through connection and empathy. Today, as we stand on the cusp of new horizons, space exploration, artificial intelligence, ecological stewardship, the essence of our shared journey remains clear. Humanity's narrative is a testament to its capacity to dream, to adapt, and to forge meaning in the ever-unfolding unfolding of time. Every act of understanding or compassion adds a new note to the symphony, a testament to the enduring spirit that propels us forward through challenges and aspirations alike. This ongoing dialogue is not merely a chronicle of what was, but an invitation to craft what could be, a collective endeavor to ensure that the melody of human history continues to rise in harmony with our highest ideals. As civilizations forge their paths through the fog of time, the pursuit of knowledge and the yearning for connection became the threads that wove the tapestry of human progress. Empires rose on the shoulders of innovation, their architects orchestrating feats that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. Zemindars, scholars, and artisans, shaping worlds with ink and iron, flame and faith. Yet, amidst grand monuments and sweeping conquests, it was the quiet acts of resilience, those whispers of hope in dark times, that truly defined the rhythm of our collective evolution. Communities rallied after devastations. Ideas sparked from the ashes of despair, and through these acts, a chorus emerged that refused to be silenced. The exchange of stories, the sharing of visions, became the backbone of cultural resilience, transforming individual struggles into collective strength. Scriptural texts and oral traditions carried the weight of generations, each narrative adding depth and nuance to what it meant to be human. The movements for justice and equality, often born amidst upheaval, echoed with the determination that every voice deserves to be heard, every life recognized. These endeavors, stitched into the fabric of history, underpin a universal truth: that understanding and compassion are the enduring keys to transcending division, whether born from race, faith, or circumstance. As societies grappled with technological leaps, engine-infused factories, wireless communications, digital revolutions, they simultaneously navigated the choppy waters of moral and ethical dilemmas. The advent of artificial intelligence posed questions not only about what machinery can do, but about what it means to be conscious, to feel, and to choose. Human ingenuity catered to both creation and reflection, demanding from us a recalibration of identity and purpose. Within this complex expanse, there was recognition that progress isn't a linear climb, but a labyrinthine journey, full of turns that challenge assumptions and galvanize new perspectives. Throughout these phases, individuals persisted, artists capturing fleeting truths in strokes and notes, scientists unveiling secrets hidden in the cosmos or nature, activists igniting passions that ignited entire movements. Each act, each idea, each daredevil leap into the unknown becomes an echo of the eternal human desire to transcend limitations. These stories, when viewed collectively, form a resilient mosaic, a testament to how curiosity, courage, and a fundamental hope for a better world ripple through generations, shaping the futures we cannot yet fully envision, but instinctively feel are within reach. It is in this ongoing symphony that the darkest moments find harmony with light. Times of war, plague, despair, each catalyzing shifts that ignite reform and renewal. The scars of conflict and suffering carve out spaces for empathy, demanding that we examine our shared vulnerabilities and forge bonds that lay the groundwork for reconciliation. Analogous to a symphony's crescendo, these tragedies propel us toward moments of clarity and unity, whispering that even in chaos, there is an unyielding current of human resilience shaping tomorrow's melodies. In every epic of upheaval and innovation, the core persists, a relentless pursuit of meaning, a quest to understand the infinite complexity of existence and our place within it. The narratives of those who came before, whether they clashed with empires or whispered in humble villages, serve as guideposts, inspiring those who walk these paths today. Their stories fuel the ongoing dialogue, emphasizing that the future isn't merely a horizon to reach, but a canvas waiting for the brushstrokes of collective intention. Dreaming in color and sound, daring to shape futures that honor every moment of the past's rich, turbulent, luminous journey.